out, but I don't want to,
Sure.
in case we, something comes up. So no, I was just, me and Matt were talking, we run I run the Centre for Healing down here in Melbourne, Australia, where we're teaching people all about trauma, being trauma informed, ways to heal from trauma, different modalities. And myself and Matt have created a modality, a somatic therapy, to help deal with traumatic imprints. And we were just saying that, the message is so aligned with kind of what we teach. And it's just so amazing that, this message can get out to such a wide audience. Obviously with the book, I saw your dad on Joe Rogan and that kind of thing. And just to see this amazing message really get out to so many people, I think is amazing.
Beautiful. I'm glad you're getting stuff from it. And
it's
so weird, A couple of months ago, I was here in a Brooklyn studio recording it, and now you're in Melbourne listening to it.
It's wild, right? Other side of the world.
It's a decent listen. It's probably the longest audio book I've listened to. I was thinking, I wonder how many sessions he recorded it through. So like 18 hours and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, it took us 5.5 days. So, days were from 10 to 5, and we recorded it 3 full days 1 week, took a weekend break, and then 2.5 the next week.
Amazing. Yeah. And it covers like a whole range of like different topics, but interwoven with the same message. And it's a lot of the same topics that we talk about. We talk about childhood and adaptations and sort of contortions of the personality, and personalities oriented around survival, and unmetabolized pain. And you guys reference A.H. Almas a whole lot, and I follow a lot of his work as well, as well as Peter Levine and Bessel van der Kolk. So many of your references and your underlying message is almost like exactly the same, with different wording. And so like listening to the book, it was like just this real deep resonance that happened. And it's like, oh, we're so glad people can sort of, because it's like piecing all the puzzles together, and you sort of get this perspective on what's driving so much of the collective dysfunction and individual pain and individual suffering. And when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, you sort of get this map. And I was listening to the book, and it's kind of like, oh, they've got exactly the same map.
Well, and the word map is a word that my dad's been using a lot in interviews in terms of what his intentions were for the book, just to give people a map through this territory. And what I like about what you said, you talk about the collective resonance in terms of these, trauma imprints and stuff like that. But clearly there's also collective resonance in terms of the pathways to something more whole, because, here we are putting out this book, and you're listening to it, and you're like, oh yeah, like that's exactly what where your intuition, I'm talking about you, has already led you, the same range of thinkers, the same kinds of principles. So, I think I kind of prefer that to the idea that, oh, we put out this book that's full of new, hot new ideas, and like no one's ever heard of this stuff before. No, it's more like validating what people are already, I think, finding their way towards, and that's, and maybe supplanting it with a broader range of sources. And there's a lot of scientific studies in there that will hopefully encourage people, because we're not just talking about some woo-woo new age domain. We're talking about bringing together what science has actually shown with the practice of these disciplines like medicine and healing and psychotherapy and psychiatry and all these things. So anyway, that's great to hear. I mean,
I think the planting the seeds
work you're already doing.
Planting the seeds is kind of the visual that I had as well. It's like, it's just the pockets of the world kind of understand this and want the world to be moving in a certain direction. And I think this just plants seeds in such a wider range of people around the world. So we're so happy that you've been able to release this book. Matt actually messaged me. He messaged me the other day. He started listening before me, and he's like, our modality is called Embodied Processing. We call it EP. He's like, they put EP into a book. And I'm like, fantastic. That's what we need.
Amazing.
So,
Great. You guys get to keep the trademark, because we didn't use that. We're not trying to horn in on your brand. I don't know if you guys heard that or saw a flash, but there was just incredible. There's like a thunderstorm here at 8 a.m.
Yeah, I saw you light up.
Very
then
gray outside. Yeah, that was lightning.
I think there's like a collective shift going on into like a new paradigm and a new, or potentially, you know, like it's always a potential whether the flower blooms or dies halfway, but potentially we're moving towards like a more trauma-informed culture and society, and like a different paradigm, and whether or not we're moving to like a collective awakening, you know, like an authentic sort of spiritual awakening to deeper sense of identity, of consciousness and all that, like that's questionable. I don't know. But it seems like this information and this map and this understanding and the perspective that you guys offer, and also what we offer, is part of the momentum that's coming through the collective unconscious. You know, it's sort of an energetic structures and archetypes and understandings that come through, and this map, it sort of comes up, and it seems like it's not reliant on distance or individual thinking. It sort of comes up and through, like it feels like it's a sort of message from life that, you know, we've sort of tapped into and you guys have tapped into at the same time.
That's a nice way to look at it. I hope you're right.
Yeah.
You know, I think the outcomes are never, you can nothing is promised, nothing is guaranteed, but you can tap into those momentums, you know, the tide, the current, all that kind of stuff. I mean, yeah, no, that's a beautiful image. And if people who are committed to a saner, wholer world were to proceed as if that was true,
yeah,
we can't prove it's true, but
Yeah.
that the way you're framing it is it's an encouraging way of looking at it, which will hopefully encourage more insights and developments, and encourage more people to share their particular unique gifts and contributions to this larger collective non-personal momentum you're speaking about.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I'm a bit of a pessimist when it comes to like, this is something I wanted to speak to you about as well, towards the end of the book, like the vision that you guys offer. Like I'm a bit of a pessimist intellectually, like you say, but an optimist of the heart. Like all my actions are towards creating social change and bringing this message to the world. But it's kind of like, I look around in my daily life and no one lives this stuff. No one has a clue about any of this stuff. It's only like my niche circle of friends. And in my head, you know, and in my experience, it's kind of like, I feel like the world's changing, but is it only like my small circle of people? You know, it's like, I don't know.
And neither do I. And I think, you know, you can get caught up in the evidence game, I think, looking for the world to validate what you know to be true in advance. Any visionary or any visionary movement, or any, like I'm a musical theater artist, you know, I write songs and shows and stuff like that. And that's literally the job description, is making something out of nothing and bringing something forth that only you or your collaborators and you can see to begin with. And you can't even see it that clearly. You just have this hunch that there's something there that wants to be said. It might take the form of a little melody in my head or a couple of words. That's how it starts, you know? And that's all you get. Like that's the down payment on that future that doesn't exist yet. And it, you know, it must be the same for activists. And you know, in some ways, I know that it started that way for my father as a doctor, just little inklings of, oh, there's something else here. You know, scientific discoveries, I'm sure, start that way. Just a little gut feeling, a little fluttering. There's, you know, so I have some of that pessimism too. You know, an interviewer in Vancouver, when I was there a couple of weeks ago with my dad, asked us both, you know, do you think that we have time for the human race to transform? And, you know, because we're staring down the barrel of so many different cataclysms and existential threats. And my dad gave, you know, he quoted the Chomsky thing that you sort of paraphrase, which is, I'm a strategic optimist, but a tactical pessimist, you know, which, you know, could also say, you know, pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will. And, you know, he said that ultimately, I think that transformation is inevitable. I think that we have it in us. I think that human beings will, you know, I have to believe that. And I was sitting there thinking, well, that sounds nice, I don't see any reason why that's more likely. I don't see any reason why that's more likely than the alternative. But what I did say is, I do believe in the human capacity to wake up at any moment. So at the very worst, at the very most grim, it's kind of a dark comedy where the very last human being, just before the air becomes unfit to breathe, and at the very last moment, the human beings take their final breath. And of course, the universe is going to go on without us, no matter what happens. So and maybe I'm just rationalizing, or being existentialist about it, but I can't get too animated about, oh my God, are we going to, people say, is the planet going to, of course the planet's going to survive. And if the planet doesn't survive, then the universe will survive. Like if you actually zoom out all the way, who really cares? But inside of our world, of course we care. We should care. That's what makes us human, But what I imagine in the worst case scenario is at the very last moment before the sun goes out, the last human being goes, oh shit, and then the lights go out, and that'll be awesome. Like just for me, that would be a satisfying ending, like a moment of awakening. Even that to me is inspiring. So it doesn't have to be some big happy ending, and I'm sure the truth will be somewhere in between. I think there is a lot of suffering coming down the pike if you actually look at the direction we're heading, and if you actually look around honestly, what's already happening on the planet in terms of hunger and inequality, and the unequal distribution of climate change catastrophes, and the way capitalism works, and all this kind of stuff. I think you'd have to be in some kind of denial to say that currently we're heading towards in the immediate offing a better day. But human beings have always found some other reason to persist and create and imagine other than some guaranteed instant gratification happy outcome, and it's only Hollywood and capitalism that tries to indoctrinate us into thinking that like the happy ending is the point.
Yeah, it's like it can become like a coping mechanism,
100%. I mean, it's pure cope.
And I think it's actually important to face the potential reality that everything goes to shit, and actually feel that, really feel that, like go there and experience what that feels like in the body. And when we start to metabolize that pain, that then it starts to shift our consciousness as well.
I think that's right.
Yeah. From your perspective, Daniel, how's the book been received so far at the time of this, when we're recording this chat? It's very, very fresh. It's only just come out. And I know that when we announced it to our community that we were chatting to you today, everyone was really excited. We had lots of people messaging and saying, I can't wait to watch it. Ask him this, ask him that. Is he single? Like we pushed those questions to the side and didn't put them in. But we had lots of excitement around talking to you. But like Matt spoke earlier, we move in circles where people, this is their jam and they love this stuff. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, what's it been like since the book's been released?
Well, it's been out for 9 days and I'm still single. So it's just it's just boggling my, how is that possible?
You won't be after this.
I do have a distance range. Like my dating app filters don't extend all the way to Oceania, but you know what? Hey,
plus
47-year-old
20,000
beggars
kilometers.
can't be choosers. But as far as the important stuff, the book is being incredibly well received. Got it right here.
Yeah.
We just found out yesterday afternoon here in New York that we are going to be on the New York Times bestseller list at number 5 on October 2nd, when that list is printed then, which is a remarkable debut, I think, for a book that hasn't gotten any mainstream attention yet. No reviews in any major papers, nothing on NPR or any of the corporate networks. A pretty impressive raft of blurbs from luminaries in the healing field and some people who kind of cross over into the more political or public realm, like Marianne Williamson. But overall, my dad's been on Rogan, which at this point might as well be a mainstream outlet, but it's not. he's been on Democracy Now, which is sort of the progressive lefty mirror image of that, right? So hitting two very different, somewhat overlapping, but quite distinct cultural demographics with those two. I think probably two demographics that may not have much to do with each other when it comes to media consumption. But I thought it was pretty cool that this book, that this was one of my main intentions in jumping aboard, and you know, one of my main goals as his co-writer was to make a book that literally anybody with an open mind about this stuff could read and get something out of, that wasn't partisan, that wasn't you know, pandering to any one cultural niche, because God knows we have enough of that going on. I don't know how things are in Australia these days culturally, but definitely in the States and Canada, it's just you're siloed into this one, you know, corner and self-identified as this part of. Anyway, it's too depressing to talk about. But the good news is the book seems to be touching people across the spectrum, and you know, we're the #1 book in Canada, which wasn't such a surprise. I think Canada has been waiting for my dad's next book for a while. It's, you know, it's our home country, and he always sells big numbers there. But you know, the audiobook is doing very well, which is, you know, it's very pleasing to my ego. And yeah, I mean, it's very new to me. I've never been an author before, and writing musicals, you toil in obscurity and solitude for a long time, and then maybe you get into a room with actors for a couple of weeks, and then it goes away for a long time. Like, this is a whole other thing. So for me personally, it's very neat. Like I'm just kind of tickled by it. I'm like, I wouldn't say bemused, but it is almost humorous to me that you know, I put all this time into this thing with my father, who'd put even more time into it even before I came on the scene, and we put it out, and the world wants it apparently, and people seem to be getting a lot from it. So, you know, I try not to pay too much attention to social media mentions and all that, but based on a cursory look at that, I'd say that the buzz is strong and getting stronger. And yeah, to debut at #5 on the New York Times list, I think bodes well. So we'll see, but so far so good.
Yeah, and I think you know, one of the reasons why it kind of the themes in the book, the concepts and everything, they're human, right? They're part of the human experience and the human condition, and they break through a lot of barriers, whether it be political beliefs or other beliefs. And I think that's why it's resonates so much already with people, and I think it will even more in the future. I'm really confident of that. Did anything surprise you in the book? You know, when you were going over the drafts and that kind of thing, was there any stories or any themes or anything that jumped out at you?
It's a good question. I was surprised about all the celebrities my dad pulled. Like, like you talked to Lena Dunham about this. You talked to Danny Glover, Mr. I'm too old for this shit. You talked to, I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis and Alanis Morissette didn't surprise me because he had already, I think, spoken to them before. But Dave Navarro from, you know, Jane's Addiction and the Chili Peppers, it's just funny. So that surprised me. But that's superficial. I was surprised by the just, I mean, I shouldn't be, because my dad had been compiling 25,000 articles in the last 10 years, you know, and including journal articles, research papers, things like that, and categorizing them meticulously on his computer. I've never seen him organized, and he could be a librarian with this, you know, just by topic, by, you know, just the volume and the robustness of the science on this stuff. You know, like I said, there's nothing fluffy or new age here. You know, you can frame soul, self, essential nature, however, whatever language you want to use, or God, or what, or nothing like that. You can be totally a rationalist about it. But what you can't fuck with, for lack of a better phrase, is the hard science on the mind-body unity, on the connection between self-suppressing personality dynamics and illnesses, between and even some very suggestive, I'd say not conclusive, but very promising and suggestive evidence around the fact that when people reintegrate themselves, it does have positive healing outcomes. And when I say reintegrate themselves, I mean reintegrate their lost parts of self, as some therapy modalities would say, reconnect with emotions that they had suppressed, and in a sense, I think what that all has in common is softening the lines of personality, softening the barriers, softening the self-definition, the identification, and form a more supple, flexible, present moment and holistic experience of the self that somehow that seems to affect health. And poetically and metaphorically, that makes complete sense. If you saw it in a movie or a children's story or something, it would be completely satisfying. Like you can imagine, in a sense, that's what Darth Vader did, right? Like he was split off from Anakin. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the original Star Wars trilogy, but then again, they probably deserve it if they haven't seen it. You know, he was split off from his original essence. He became something that was more machine than man, a new identity, and then he committed all kinds of horrible genocidal acts as that new identity. And then at the very last minute, right before he dies, he reconnects and something in him heals. And it does it through love and compassion. So if you saw it in a legend or a myth or a story or a movie, it would resonate on the heart level. It'd be like, yeah, that's true. But to find out that science is also showing that it's true is like catching up with our mythic thinking. That was surprising to me. And then the flip side of that is a bit more depressing or just vexing. And I know it vexes my dad in the extreme, is the gap between what science has shown and what medicine recognizes in practice. You can have all the evidence in the world, but then you have medicine, which is allegedly, it self-describes as an evidence-based practice. And as my dad says, it's more that you have evidence-based practice, practice-based evidence. It's more that, yeah, exactly. Like I'm missing the phrasing. Sorry, it's still early in the morning here, but it's more just that medicine just reinforces its own existing points of view.
Yeah.
And sees things through a narrow filter. And so that surprised me too, just given how voluminous the body of work is and growing. How is it that the applied sciences like medicine can be so in the dark about it and almost willfully, like, you know, all of the clinicians and doctors my dad spoke to, not a single one of them had ever received a lecture in medical school on trauma. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Just given, again, you don't have to be ideological about it, just to look at the science.
And you know that like what you were saying, like it perpetuates its own viewpoint, and that's telling of like the nature of human consciousness and what like being identified with ego structures and belief systems and dogma and interpretations. They become the filter that we view our reality through, and a threat to that is experienced as a personal attack, and that actually activates the survival instinct within the physiology in the nervous system at the same time. So, you know, this is why like new information can cop so much resistance, because it's playing on the survival physiology of the people who are indoctrinated into the old philosophies, which may be outdated and proved wrong by science, but it falls on deaf ears because they're identified with that and it feels threatening as it comes in. And so I would say that.
And then, sorry, just to interrupt, but built on top of that is you have the individual physiologies, but then we've built social structures to reinforce and more deeply entrench the idea. I mean, that's how you really safeguard it. Because an individual, you can eventually maybe get to an individual. There's a crack in everything, like Leonard Cohen said, that's how the light gets in. But when it comes to ideological superstructures and entire systems of incentive and reward and economy and privilege and just the status quo, just the machine that keeps going, you might call it a matrix. The matrix in that movie, why it's so powerful is that there's broad-based consensus agreement on that reality. So it's much, much more difficult to penetrate. It's not like Neo has to go up to Agent Smith and be like, hey man, let me have a one-on-one, a heart-to-heart with you, man-to-man, and just, let me see if I can break up your worldview. No, he's not a person. He's not an individual. He's a representative of a system. And not to get too conspiratorial, that's a metaphor, that's a movie, that's just a myth, but it does speak to something, which is that when human beings get together and we create cultural structures that are there to not enhance or serve life, but to reinforce myths that block us from seeing ourselves, that's very, 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 it can't be overstated how powerful and seemingly impermeable that is.
And that those structures come out as a response to trauma, out of threat. We build structures as a response to tragic events, and threatening circumstance. Like I have a friend who just completed is about to complete his master's in psychology. And he said the whole thing is legalities and ass covering. He said, you don't learn how to help someone. He said, it's like bad things have happened to psychologists or practitioners along the way. And so now the whole thing is about protecting ourselves from that happening. And so the whole training has become a response to trauma from the past. And when you're right, when these collective structures start to happen, it's like, who do you talk to? Who makes the changes? Who decides to change them? And they're self-perpetuating, they're loops, and they perpetuate themselves by something bad happening again. And then they create another structure and it continues to circle around and around. And, it's how do we actually get through that? And the only answer I can come up with is grace. Grace has to make the changes.
Well, how do you define grace?
That's a perfect question. I don't know. The intelligence of life as it comes through through us, same intelligence that heals my cut on my hand, the same intelligence that moves tides in and out, something much, much deeper and universal has to come through.
You're speaking about a faith in something we can't necessarily see, but we can see evidence of if we tune our vision to it. I think that's one piece of it. And the other piece of it is just dissent. Like that's grace you can't force, right? As far as I can tell, there's no way to, people pray, and sometimes they think prayer is a connection to grace, but really, as far as I can tell, prayer is just preparation for people to be receptive to and to be able to perceive. It's like tuning the instrument so that you can be receptive to it and let go of control. And then there's activism and proactive action. And it seems to me that us having conversations like this, using the potentially oppressive technology of the internet to put out a conversation that maybe takes people more in a direction of freedom and awareness. And then, as Noam Chomsky says, whenever anyone asks him, how do we make changes? He says, it's pretty simple. Just organize. You can't do it yourself. Just have conversations with people. And it starts at the grassroots,
activism and like that inspiration for activism, I could say that's a form of grace. What inspires?
Sure, absolutely.
Like action.
Absolutely. I guess what you're talking about is, in a sense, entering into a collaborative relationship with whatever unseen force is there that wants life that's on the side, that's literally pro-life. And I do not mean that in any way to refer to the noxious abortion debate, where that term is skewed at best, but actually on the side of life, human life being connected with the rest of the universe. I have to believe there is something there, but I think for some people that would, that higher power, like some people in recovery, for instance, don't believe in God, so they believe in the human spirit. They believe in just humanity. They connect with something they may not use the word grace. They may use possibility. Doesn't matter. It's not whatever you want to call it. There is something there that allows us to see beyond the veil of whatever currently exists and seems to be immutable, and to imagine something more inspiring. And yeah, it's what I hear you saying is we collaborate with that, we get on side with that in whatever way calls to us. And I think that's very consonant with how we describe one aspect of the healing journey in part 5 of this book, which is the last and the largest, at least the most voluminous section of the book. We have like, I think 7 or 8 chapters on that. And just trying to lay out, not a how-to guide, because we have no idea how, but here are some of the principles of it. Here's how healing seems to work. Here's what it responds to. Here's what it isn't. So yeah, I think great. I love the word grace.
No, it's interesting. You talked about, sorry, finish, and then I'll
no, I was finished. That's good.
You talk about like the science and all that. It's like, it's amazing to have that sort of evidence. But for me, I relate to everything you guys say on such an experiential level. Like my whole childhood was filled with trauma. My whole personality was oriented around survival and cultural, collective, and personal, layered through my psyche. And like by age 12, I was using drugs every day. By age 16, I was using heroin daily. I was in and out of prison. All the stuff that your dad would have seen while he worked in those places with all the heroin addicts. That was my life for a long time, about 12, 13 years. And I went to rehab 17 times. No one ever mentioned trauma when I was in rehab. It was always just, 12-step programs and all that. But every time I'd get clean, I'd spend 2 weeks, some small thing would happen and I'd be triggered into unbelievable terror, rage. And the only way I knew how to cope with that was to go and use. And but the last time I went to rehab, I decided, okay, I'm going to look at my trauma, because I had a lot of it. And as I was working through different layers of stress that was stored in my body, the trauma and the imprints, my IBS went away, all my gut problems went away, heaps of my chronic physical pain went away. And I was sitting there and sort of meditating, and I didn't know anything about sort of spirituality or what we were talking about, a deeper dimension of ourselves that you talk about in the book. And I just asked, if that can go, then who am I? And all of a sudden I became aware of a presence, an essence that doesn't change, that's always been there. And since then, my whole life has transformed, bit by bit by bit, as deeper layers of sort of the personality structures and the adaptations are falling away and more pain gets metabolized. It's like the whole book is like, a lived reality. And that's why there's so much resonance, when you guys talk about it. And, just like,
that's,
at the same time.
Oh, that's terrific. Thank you for sharing that with me. I mean, that's classic, like what you're talking about. I mean, that's how, from what I remember, that's sort of very analogous with how like Eckhart Tolle woke up, right? He was suffering. He was going through some kind of spiral, like his identity was just unraveling in front of his eyes. He didn't know where this pain was coming from. And he had this thought, who is the I who's witnessing the suffering? And all of a sudden he wakes up on a park bench and he's, Eckhart Tolle. And he's
spent 5 years there.
And then he sat on a park bench for 5 years and did nothing and just looked at the birds, observed the mind. I mean, I had a pretty cozy life compared to a lot of people who are impelled on this journey by a kind of suffering that's just so, I suffered for sure, but it was never due to the kinds of things that land people in jail or on hard drugs, things like that. But speaking of jail, like my weird, this is just a side note, but like my journey has been growing up in a family where trauma has been talked about all the time, and yet I was still traumatized in that family. Well, what do I do with that? That like my trauma came at the hands of the guy who became Mr. Trauma. Again, and I'm not blaming him, but it's just a fact, right? We're born into the world with no power at all, and we're born to certain parents who are carrying certain imprints, and they get passed down and all that. So finding my own way through the sufferings and travails just of being a depressed adult who has dysfunctional romances and difficulty sticking to one career path and going through crazy ups and downs, which is in some ways, I remember my dad once saying to me when I was in the middle of a deep depression, he says, God, Daniel, sometimes I just wish you'd develop a good heroin addiction so that you could like snap out of it just like that. I'm like, well, I'm not sure if that's how it works, Dad, but point taken. But in my life, because I haven't ended up in some of those more big ticket adversities, it's almost like my life has manufactured very esoteric, bespoke challenges for me that are just custom made, and they're almost comically so. So a year ago yesterday, I was deported from Mexico. I was put on a plane by the Mexican immigration authorities and sent back to Canada. And this was on my 24th day of incarceration in a Mexican immigration jail.
Oh, wow.
I had overstayed my visa by 2 months. I was living there with my then girlfriend, and we, 6-month visa, and we decided to extend, and we got some bad legal advice, which told us, don't worry, they don't enforce you'll just have to pay a fee when you leave. And I happened to be on a bus from Mexico City heading northward to the town we were living. Immigration officials came on board, checked my passport, and they were like, come with us. And for the next 2.5 weeks, 3.5 weeks, I was in jail, essentially. And it wasn't, jail with bars and big tattooed men threatening me in the yard. Everyone was very nice. It was, young guys, mainly from the global South. I was the only gringo there. And my Spanish got a lot better over those few weeks. And I was only in there for 3.5 weeks because I got COVID in there. So it extended my stay by 15 days. But, someone very close to me at the time said, I think you've been given a profound encounter with the self. And that's what it was. And speaking of the layers of personality, and grace, I observed during the first week of that time, all of my personality's coping defenses just mobilizing, like on reserve duty, called up for the emergency to try and get me out of there, to try and, I had like the very young me who's very verbal and cerebral and communicative. So I'm like trying to get past the guards to talk to the immigration authorities, the bureaucrats inside. And the guards were very nice. They were just giant smiling pylons, basically. Their job was to prevent us from getting to talk to anybody who could do anything about a situation. But there's, once I did get into the office, explaining, like in Spanish, like, ¿Conoces Penguin Random House? I'm writing a book with my father. It's a very important book. It's about trauma. Like, I'm trying to reason with these people. They have 600 people to deal with. I am not special, but in my mind, I am. I'm so special. And if I explain to them how special I am, then I will be released. And then when that doesn't work, and then I get really pissy, like that's the teenage me, like kind of sarcastic and like verbally aggressive and whatever, as if that's going to do anything. And when that didn't work, then the depression comes along and the self-pity and the, oh my God. And just like you, at a certain point, something kicked in and was like, there's someone in me that's watching all of this happen. There was a noticer, there was a watcher. And it was interesting. And again, it's so cliche. You see it in every prison awakening movie, right? Someone has a spiritual awakening in jail. You realize that you are not your conditioned mind, because the part of me that was watching didn't experience being imprisoned. I was like, my body was in jail. And it's not like I was off on some mountaintop free as a bird, but I also wasn't limited. Or at least I didn't have a story about it. I'm like, oh, I'm in this prison. I can't leave right now. Most of me wishes I could. Part of me is relieved that I don't have any choices. Some strange part of me, like a little corner of me, is like, oh, no internet. oh, no consumer choices. I can't go out. Oh, I just get to eat whatever they give me. And I get to spend my days pacing the yard, singing my musicals to myself. And I have this very little, narrow, limited, and some strange, unknown part of me was like, what a relief. I'm not saying I was happy about it. It sucked. And I had COVID in there, and the place was overcrowded, and people have died in that facility before. I found out after I left. It was quite notorious. So I didn't have some Zen that blissed out like, this is nirvana. But I also wasn't completely identified with the part of me that was struggling. And in so doing, I got some distance from all of my conditioned coping personality problems, which have been trying to get me out of jail my whole fucking life, because I experienced so many aspects of my childhood as jail, being trapped in a situation where I don't feel like I'm being nourished the way I want, where I'm not being listened to, where I don't have a say, where where I'm stressed out all the time. And so this intense, reactive, very clever and very skilled, but very limited personality comes along and protects us from however we experience or perceive our environment. So it was this, and it was like a moment of grace. And I remember my sister managed to smuggle in this whole story, but I managed to get a raft of letters from friends, which I wasn't supposed to get, but my sister smartly sent around this time of year is the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. It'll be next, I think Monday is this year's, but it coincided with my jail stay last year. And she was able to send in a printout of like a prayer handbook in Hebrew. And so the person smuggling in all the letters to me was able to say to the guards, oh no, they're not letters, which I'm not allowed to have. They're prayers, and they can't say no to that. So she got me this, and I'm not religious. I do read Hebrew and all that, and I've been to services on Rosh Hashanah, but having this document with these ancient prayers, these ancient incantations in this ancient language that connects me to something so far back, so not personal, to a whole history of people who have so many times been trapped in situations they didn't choose and that were far more horrible than a Mexican immigration jail. Like real life and death stuff. I found myself actually at one moment, I was singing to myself very quietly one of these prayers, which I would never do in other circumstances. Never. I'm not religious, but I was weeping.
Wow.
I was weeping with this kind of gratitude, with this kind of sense of belonging, and not only to the Jewish tradition, but just to the tradition of human beings getting beyond themselves. And getting liberated from the experiential constraints of how tight and small and confining it can be to be incarcerated inside a human life. So it's like, on one level, I will never be able to relate to what it is to be a teenage heroin addict. And on the other hand, I hear you completely,
It's
and
what Matt and I talk about is these moments of futility. And it's like when we're put under these situations of extreme distress, and then all of a sudden in response to that stress, like for you, as you were describing it, it's like all hands on deck. And we kind of work through these different defense structures. And yes, there's toddler us, there's teenage us, there's, 25-year-old us, and we work through them. And when none of it works, and it doesn't happen all the time, but in some situations, and it can be quite random, we just reach this moment of futility where all of those defense structures kind of go, we don't know what to do. And they all relax. And it's those moments where people can, like you did in that immigration jail, can sort of relax back into that part of us that isn't overly worried about where they are. It's like being on that mountaintop, in your mind and in your heart, as opposed to being there physically. And it's really beautiful to hear that experience.
It's like I use
absolutely. If we're lucky, we get those moments of everything falling to shit and futility. Isn't it weird?
It's like great. We're painting a room, and then we've painted ourselves into a corner, and there's nowhere to go. We're stuck in the corner, and if we take a step that way, we ruin the paint. We take a step that way, we ruin the paint. The way Ryan described it, and then it sort of relaxes. It's never that peaceful. It's more like a scream and holding on to that last moment, and then like a letting go out of complete futility, like it can't hold on anymore. But like that experience, it's that's what I would call like experiential insight, into the nature of trauma and into the nature of the personality structures. And we can talk about this and teach this stuff, but it's not until someone has that insight and sees their adaptations playing out in a situation like that, or even in a relational dynamic with their partner. And when they can really see that, it's like, oh wow, I'm not my mind. I'm not all these defensive structures. They're actually just repetitive patterns that are playing out.
Yeah, that's right.
Just, survival adaptations, ways I learned to survive my childhood. They're automatic reactive patterns. And, we then identify with that and we think that's all that we are. And, just back to what you were talking about the medical collective perspectives perpetuating themselves and not being able to see anything outside themselves. That's exactly the same nature as these ego structures. They perpetuate themselves and they can't see beyond themselves. We have to actually have a moment of insight where we step beyond those structures in order to see through them, in order for
what that suggests though is that if it takes a crisis, and actually I think if you look at the etymology of the word crisis, there's nothing negative about it. It's actually like it's a very productive thing. There's a reason that the Chinese character for crisis is basically the same one as opportunity. Like, it's where something comes to a head and something new comes into the world. I forget the exact derivation, but if it takes, for me, an individual being boxed into a crisis that I could not have planned and that I would have selected anything else but that, but tough. And I've had that happen many times. You mentioned relational dynamics. It seems to happen to me in August a lot. I got both married and divorced in an August, and 2 years apart. It was a very quick, kind of disastrous, catastrophic marriage for me that showed me aspects of how my attachment system is built and all that. I had a health crisis in Vancouver a few weeks ago relating to some stress around my parents. Right before the book came out, there's apparently still stuff for me to learn. But if it's true that an individual needs to be involuntarily thrust into a crisis, what's it going to take? Like, how do you induce a crisis in a societal system that has so many built-in incentive structures? Like, what would it take for the medical system or capitalism writ large to wake up one morning and be like, oh my God, this is really terrible. This isn't working. I don't think you can do it. This is why revolution occurs to human beings, because we have to enforce a crisis. We have to make it uncomfortable for them, because the system is built to be comfortable for the perpetuators of the system, no matter what's happening. They're insulated from it. Like, the medical system can say we want to cure cancer and improve human health, and that's true. The vast majority of doctors and researchers are in it for the right reasons, and the system is there in a sense to perpetuate itself, and that sometimes often will be at odds with the intention to do the most good or to reduce the most harm. So that's where I think, coming back to what you're talking about before in terms of how optimistic or pessimistic to be, it's a lot easier to induce a crisis in an individual life or in a relationship or in a family system than it is in an entire societal system. And that, I think, takes a level of historical grace and or chaos theory that is just beyond me. You never know when that inflection point is going to be, when enough is enough and something's got to give. So all we can do is just participate in the movement towards whatever and whenever that hinge point is going to be that will start to turn the corner of history. But these are huge scale changes that would need to happen. And there are all kinds of mechanisms in place to make sure that they don't.
Yeah, definitely. It's that question, are we going to change, by design or by disaster? And personally, if I look at my life, it's always disaster. I get forced into it. I get cornered, and then when I'm cornered, the defense structures, like, Gabor mentions in the book where he was in the ayahuasca trip and he was thrown to the floor and he said, I was finally out of the driver's seat.
Well, but there's a reason, like, remember the situation that impelled him to be not in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is that
yeah.
he got fired. He got fired from his own retreat by a bunch of Shipibo shamans in Peru who had never heard of him before and didn't know he was a big, important, beloved trauma expert.
Yeah,
And you know, we talk about this in I guess chapter 31 of the book about psychedelics. But it's about much more than psychedelics, which is that, you know, he had this plan and his ego really liked being a healer, and all these people had come from all over the world to work with him. And then the shamans spend one night in ceremony with him and they're like, dude, you can't be in here. You're far too dark and dense. You're carrying all kinds of trauma, both your own trauma that you've never fully dealt with and the trauma of all the people you work with and that you've built your big reputation working with, and you've never cleared it out. And it's just, we can't have you in the room. It's actually undermining the transformation of the people who came to work with you. And so the only choice he had, just like me with jail, was whether to fight that or to accept that and to kind of embrace that. And I'm really proud of him that he did. And I remember when my mom called me, I forget where I was at the time, but to let me know that was happening, I felt this relief in my body that my dad got fired from his own job, or laid off, at least, you know, put on furlough. And that he embraced that. And I knew something great was going to come from that. And I knew it must have been the hardest thing for him to do because he's so identified with this role and people rely on him so much. People project onto him so much, and quite understandably, if they're going to invest and come to Peru from all over the world to work with him, they must have been very disappointed, but they acquitted themselves very well. And he made the most of it. And actually, I'll tell you a secret. The part in the book where we sort of distill the lessons from that experience, talking about how he had to give up control, how he wasn't in control, just the principles behind that experience. I was the primary author on that section. I was like, Dad, let me take this because I think I know what you learned. I'm not sure if you can put into words what you learned, but I know what you learned and I know what you needed to learn. And I wrote that part before I had been to jail, but it's the same thing. It's like all my plans got disrupted. My entire identity, my sense of who I was, of what makes me important, what makes me special, what makes me lovable, was all of a sudden null and void. The only choice I had was to trust in what life was giving me or not. So I really enjoy, just to go back to the writing of the book, I enjoyed the moments where I could put words in my dad's mouth that were maybe more candid and honest than he could have come up with, but that were also very true, and that he would say, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to say. So that was a really fun aspect of the role for me because I know him pretty well, and I've always wanted that for him, that he would have an experience of something much more profound and noble than his worldly reputation, which is noble enough. I mean, I admire him for it too, but as his son, you can imagine being the son of a famous, beloved person. You get tired of that because you know it's a persona, and you know that it has its downsides too. There's a dark side to it. And as he'll readily say, the dark side of his fame and his importance in the world would show itself mostly when he closed the front door of our house, which is that he gets home from work and he's no longer in that role. Well, who is he then? Sometimes a pretty dark, empty feeling, despairing, depressed person. And the love of the world is what he's addicted to. So the love of his family isn't enough. That's pretty tough, you know? So that in me, there was this, I've always had this hunger for connecting with something other than my dad's therapist role. And I remember, I guess I'm going off on a tangent here. I hope it's okay.
No, this is fantastic. This is really good.
Yeah.
So he and I lead a workshop together called Hello Again, A Fresh Start for Parents and Their Adult Children, which is going to be the title and topic of our next book. And that one will not be Gabor Maté with Daniel Maté. That'll be Gabor Maté and Daniel Maté. In fact, if we do it alphabetically, it'll be the other way around. And I'm excited for that one, not just for that reason, but because it's such a topic it's a tough topic, and it's a topic that everyone deals with and no one talks about. There's no books about this. There's a million books about parenting, a million books about grieving your dead parents, but what about all the time in between? So anyway, we do a workshop on this, and what I love about it is that my dad is as much of an expert on it as I am, which is to say, trial and error, man. Like we don't have this figured out. And if you watch any videos of us on YouTube, you'll see it. We can be really prickly with each other. There's some nasty stuff sometimes, not nasty, but like it's real. You know, I think people really appreciate that. But there was one time we were doing it in Toronto, and I felt that he was just kind of on autopilot. I just felt like he wasn't really with me. And and the crowd, most of the people in the room were there because of him, right? They wanted to work with him. So I'm the fly in the ointment. And I felt like he was kind of going off the track. Like, we have a curriculum in that course. It's different than what he does with people when he's alone. It's a different course, but he was going back to his comfort zone of like, tell me about your trauma, and like working with people one-on-one and taking a long time. I'm like, Dad, this is not what this course is. This course is helping people in their relationships now. But anyway, I just felt like our lines of communication as we were leading the workshop, we didn't have the signals to like be like, hey, Dad, you know, like in baseball or cricket or whatever, you have, I don't know how cricket works, but baseball, you got exactly all that stuff, right? So that wasn't working. So during a break, or maybe that night, I said to him, Dad, you're getting lost in your role. And he looked at me, and he was very tired. He was on autopilot. He had been talking and speaking in a million different cities, flying all over North America. And he says to me, it's not a role, Daniel. I said, what do you mean it's not a role? He said, when I'm doing that, I'm channeling the truth. I don't know how I'm doing it, but it's like I'm not even there. I'm opening a channel for people to see. And he wasn't trying to be cocky about it. He actually meant that there's something truly authentic coming through him. It's beyond him. I said, yes, Dad, I know that. I got that. But the only reason that can work sustainably is if you contain it within a role. Do you think when Ian McKellen plays King Lear, he gets off stage and he's like, no, I'm not Ian, I'm King Lear. No, the only reason he can channel the truth of the bard so beautifully and so cleanly is because he knows that when he steps off stage, he's not Lear anymore. It is a role of a kind, you know? And so professionally, I needed him to realize that so he can adjust the performance to fit the needs of the story we're in, the thing we're actually doing, so that he's not just completely identified with that, but also just as a son, emotionally, that was completely consonant with a lifelong longing of mine to connect with the person underneath the personality that he's so comfortable with and that he gets so much fucking validation for. Rightly so. People appreciate it. It's valuable, but like, so it's like that to me has been sort of an example of, you could be the most beloved, helpful, important person in the world, but I see the suffering that it causes when that's all he is to himself. And I feel the suffering that I feel as someone who's one of the closest people in the world to him, of being denied that part of him that he's less familiar with, which is just the person, just the human being, just stripped of all that role. So that's an extra reason why when I heard that he had been fired from his own retreat by people who had never heard of him, I knew something good was coming.
Yeah.
And I was really glad for it. I'm proud of him. So I think that is a pretty cool part of the book.
Yeah. There's a quote by I think it's Ramdas. It's just 2 words, you know, fierce grace. It's like, you know, that experience is a fierce kind of grace, being beaten down. And, you know, like that, like me and Ryan are both fathers, and, you know, through all my work, and my work has been continuous, you know, like I'm inquiring into content and metabolizing pain all day long. It's sort of second nature. And, you know, like my spiritual awakening, all of that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean I'm immune to not playing out my trauma with my kids. You know, I've got a 4-year-old son, and I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and I screw up daily. You know, I have rough days, I have anger come up, I have reactive anger come up, I have all that sort of stuff come up. And, you know, it's kind of like, you know, hearing that as well, it's like, you know, no one's past that finish line where it's kind of like we're immune to this stuff. No, that, you know, and me and Ryan talk about this with all of our students. This work isn't goal oriented to get to a place where we're 100% authentic, because then we're rejecting our experience. you know, just hearing that was really, really validating to the, you know, to our insight and understanding that this work is ongoing. You know, it doesn't matter who you are, how much you know this stuff, and it's, you know, it's very deeply ingrained, this stuff.
And we say in the book, in the healing section, that healing is not a point on a map, it's a direction. It's a general cardinal direction on your compass. Am I moving towards wholeness? Am I moving laterally inside of my identity, or am I closing down? You know, the healing is moving in the direction. But even then, sometimes you have to take detours and go through. So even then, it's not like an unbroken line. And you can't see from the perspective of one moment or one day or even 1 year necessarily how this one dip, you know, this one valley is part of a bigger climb. So yeah, there is no, I mean, God help us from, you know, save us from perfection or the quest for it. It doesn't really serve anything to expect that you're gonna snap into some kind of enlightenment. It happens for some people.
Yeah. And you know,
and then
like
they get to be gurus for the rest of their life. And who wants that?
Yeah.
And you know, less and less I believe in the guru who has no problems. How often do we see those people screw up as well? You know, make a mess of things.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
and betray people,
yeah.
and really actively betray their followers and take advantage of them. You know, my dad was talking to Adyashanti once, who's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, because he's just so down to earth and plain spoken. He's just a mountain biking dude. Like, he's just a little California dude who happens to have seen some stuff and can communicate it well. But he asked Adyashanti about this. It was in front of I think it's on YouTube. And how is it that these enlightened masters can be so callous and exploitative? He said, and Adyashanti said, it's interesting. You know, it might be that there's spiritual maturity on the one hand, and then there's emotional maturity on the other. And it might be that the two have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah. I don't think it might be. I think they do have nothing to do with each other. You know,
I think that must be true.
You know, spiritually, and have real transcendent realizations and shifts of identity. But there can be other parts of them that are lagging way behind, you know, really,
including ethics and morals, right? And so,
and trauma.
And it's, you know, of course, spirit trauma and spiritual bypass is a thing. You can be so far above everything, you see through everything. So, you know, what's empathy? What's compassion? What are power dynamics really? It's just a perception. Everything is meaningless. Okay, well then let me exploit you. It's keeping one foot in the actual world that people actually live in, and not committing level confusion, where you think that just because there's some ultimate truth, you don't have to be responsible for the rules of engagement at the level where you're operating, is a common fallacy. And I've seen it in myself too. And I've seen myself excuse behavior in myself by means of very elaborate, slippery spiritual rationalizations. And you got to watch out for that, because that is not growth. That is that is
it's bypassing
seduction and exploitation. What's that?
It's bypassing, like you said.
It's bypassing, and it doesn't serve anybody. And ultimately, it doesn't serve anything except your ego or your selfish needs.
Yeah. You know, that's like these adaptations and these sort of survival patterns. They have their roots so deep in our nervous system. Our whole nervous system is patterned to live them out as reflexes, as reactions to our environment. And so we can have a level of spiritual realization. You know, we can be able to be absorbed into samadhi, or, you know, realize ourselves as pure consciousness, the I am, or even realize ourselves as everything, you know, as the unity, as Adyashanti would call it, unity consciousness. But yet our system can still be patterned to relate in specific ways and have specific reactions play out in relationship. And I think it takes a level of humility and coming down off the mountaintop to start to really work through those. You know, and that's the difficult and painful journey, is learning to embody, you know, whatever we've realized, whether it's a spiritual realization or not. This is what Adyashanti says, but just to embody the deepest truth that you've experienced, that, you know, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Well, and then you know what I call it. So I do my own modality of helping people, I guess, which I'm not trained in at all, except just by life experience. And there's no certification for it except the one I bestowed upon myself. I call myself a mental chiropractor. And I have what I call a mental chiropractic service called Walk with Daniel. And people take walks with me either in person, but much more commonly by phone or Zoom audio, because I walk with people all over the world. I've done walks with people in Australia, South Africa, Europe, Africa, like I think Kenya once, Asia, and all over North America and South America. And the term mental chiropractor was given to me by a participant at a retreat that I was co-facilitating when I was married, and I thought I was going to apprentice with my father as a psychedelic integration specialist before I realized that's not me, that's him. Like the whole dynamic of the marriage was both my wife and I were like, she was like an apprentice of my dad's, and I was just kind of going along, which was like a complete dioramic reenactment of all of my trauma, like not knowing who I am separate from this giant, But in any case, one of the nice moments of that retreat was when someone said to me, you're not your dad. I said, thank you very much. He said, you're not a therapist. I said, thank you very much. Because I'm not, I have a bullshit psychology degree, but I never did anything with it. Just like you, I found out that university psychology doesn't care about people. He said, you're a mental chiropractor. I said, that's great, because I don't have the patience or the inclination or the temperament to sit with someone in their deepest trauma for a long time and be like, what happened to you? And what was that like? And I've seen my dad do it, and he's a genius at it. I mean, it's really a gift. He is channeling something very true. It's not, he wasn't being inflated about that. It actually is true. But that's not what I do. I like getting in there and like, let's adjust it. Like, and so to do that, let me adjust you. Now, you cannot do that with a big ticket, capital I issue. I'm not going to adjust your daddy issues. I'm not going to adjust your trauma or your addiction, or your ADD or your anything like that. I can't do that. That's not how it works. But if you're dealing with a situation that's a manifestation of that, like a specific incident. So for instance, parent issues, that's too big, but you're going to see your parents next week, and you know how it's going to go, and you don't want it to go that way, but you know it's going to go that way, and you've planned, and you have all the different contingencies in your mind, and you've looked at it inside out and sideways, and you just know it's going to go that way, and you feel completely stuck on it and resigned and frustrated. I know how to help you with that, because I don't have any advice to give you, but I know how to ask you questions that will have you see what point of view you are stuck in that is giving you that expectation, and that will guarantee that it goes that way. And if you can unfasten yourself from that point of view and see the futility of it, to bring back a concept you raised, it is really about seeing the futility of it and giving someone an experiential hit of that futility. Then something kicks in without me having to suggest anything. The creativity, it ain't necessarily so part of us that's like, oh, okay, well, if that's futile, well, then what else is possible? What's another point of view? So I take walks with people, and within the span of an hour and a half, we get to that place with this one specific situation, this one stuck point. And I forget how I got onto this. I wasn't just trying to plug my website, walkwithdaniel.com. But do you remember how I got onto this? Because there was a point to this.
Where did it start? No, it was.
I left it. I left the original point in the dust. But
I think it's related. But whatever.
Yeah, it's related. But that's what I love to do. I love to get in there quickly, get in, get out, and leave someone feeling more supple and aligned and less disturbed about a particular situation. And then, if you can have a small victory.
You're talking about your dad, and you're not wanting like the psychedelic therapy, and that's not me. That's how it started.
Yeah. And realizing, well, this is an expression of me, that the conversations I love having are either when I or another person are really intentionally looking for the skeleton key to a particular stuck point, and then we look at it in a different way and we find it, and something clicks. And it doesn't solve the entire situation, you can't solve your marriage in one conversation necessarily, or heal your trauma. But what you can do is have an experience. This is where I was going. I get it now. You have to have a taste of victory. You have to develop a taste bud. This is my term. You have to develop a taste bud for that more fruitful way of seeing things, an experiential taste bud, not just an intellectual, like, oh yeah, that sounds true, but that feels good when I adjust things that way, and when I get things aligned, and when I see things for how they are, or at least when I see things in a way that's lined up with my intentions. It's like the spine has a certain kind of alignment that it wants to be in. And if it's not, the whole body suffers. Well, the mind also has a certain kind of desired alignment where the intentions, the values, the beliefs, the perceptions, the emotions, the thoughts are working together. And so much of the time we walk around in life and what we don't see is that our intentions are at odds with our assumptions, are at odds with our working theories, are at odds with our whatever. So getting just a small taste of that, which sometimes people get in psychedelic experiences. You can't import your psychedelic experience back into your ordinary waking life. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as magical or special as it is, but you get the taste of it. And you can never untaste it. And then you can expand that taste bud. Like, I like that taste. Let me seek it out. Let me get, it's like you become a wine connoisseur. You find more depth in it. Oh, there's tasting notes of peach and shoe leather or whatever. You get more intimate with it, and then that starts to take up more and more space in your experiential repertoire, and it starts to build good habit energy around that, so that it's kind of I think of it as like an outside in approach to healing. And I think there's value to both. Like, I'm in therapy myself. You try to get all the way inside and excavate that trauma and see what it was. But there's also real value, I think, in having just little wins.
Oh, it's so important
because you start to get the memo that it's not fixed in stone.
Yeah, I think it's one thing for a coach to say, oh, well, if you catch up with your family this week, well, let's play out that it goes a certain way, and that's very intellectual. But if you actually go in and have a very different experience with your family that's different to the reactive patterns that you've had in the past, then all of a sudden you sort of say to yourself, oh, what's that? What else is possible? And that's that opening.
Right, and I'm creating a different reality from before I step in the door.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I did that. Wow. What else?
Yeah. Or I invited that, or I participated in that, and it just doesn't. I'm not at the effect of. You get to see the ways that you create your reality, not through like manifesting and positive thinking and all those kinds of more esoteric concepts, but literally, seeing is believing, but believing is also seeing. We usually only see through our point of view. We don't see our point of view, and what I love doing with people. And the only thing that's ever worked for me in terms of really transforming anything is to see what my point of view is, and to see my point of view for what it is, and to see what the predictable consequences are of my point of view. That's the only way I can be responsible for it. Because if I don't see how the whole thing works, then I'm just too attached to it. Why would I want to let go of it? It's worked for me so far. But if I actually step outside, pull the curtain back and be like, oh, I get it. That's where that leads. Then something in me, like I said, gets the memo. Okay, well, if that isn't true, then what is possible?
And so, questioning your reality, and we talk, like, we use the metaphor, like this metaphor is used a lot in different sort of spiritual circles, but the difference between reading a whole lot about a strawberry versus biting into a strawberry. So giving someone that moment of an experiential insight is like giving them a strawberry, yes. Like, have a bite. They then know what a strawberry tastes like. And in our training, I talk about like undoing the threads of a tapestry. So, like doing that correction and giving them an experiential insight can be like pulling one thread. It's not long before the rest of the threads unravel. They're inevitably going to unravel at a certain point. Once we have an experiential insight into our personality structures and into how it works, into the mechanisms that create it, then it's sort of like it's time's up. It's going to unravel at a certain point. You know,
Yeah,
when
it's
that
like the wormhole only, or the door only swings one way.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, great.
Daniel, I thought we'd get into the questions we have from the community here. You
Happy
know,
to, yeah.
yeah, we just say obviously people, like I said, were very excited to hear from you. And it was a question that actually was coming up for me. The first one, as you were talking before, was the writing of this book, and in conjunction with the Hello Again, was it the workshops? Has that been a really piece of healing between you and your dad? Because, you know, your dad's obviously been really vocal about his own trauma, and also he's really open about the fact that he's passed that on to his children. So I'm wondering if the book and those workshops are playing a part in your healing at the minute and in the recent history.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hugely, I would say. I mean, first I need to say that even my dad's candor and public contrition about his parenting is a mixed bag for me, because that's his version of events. And then I see him out in the world getting all kinds of validation and thanks for being so open about my childhood. And there's a part of me that's like, well, fuck you, that's mine. Like, and it can be, when I was younger, it was confusing, because it's almost like my dad gave me the official history of my childhood, and it was compassionate. It's not like some parents would be continuing the abuse and denying their role. It was quite the opposite. But in a sense, it was almost like it preempted my own emergent, authentic anger and experience and whatever it was. So that gave me another thing to sort through. Well, what was it actually like for me? Because there must be a part of my experience that he wasn't privy to. He cannot be the authority on my experience, even if he's the nicest, most compassionate, most self-searching father in the world. I still have to own this story. This is mine. So finding that has been a real journey for me, and working with him closely has given me a kind of scaffolding for drawing boundaries that I couldn't do before. So what do I mean by that? When we're working together, there is a larger intention at play. We're building something, you know, we've been building this for the last 4 years. Like, this didn't exist at all. It was just words on a screen and emails back and forth. And now we have this, and this was always the vision. How are we going to get from where we were to this? Well, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of discernment. It's going to take clear communication. It's going to mean not tolerating certain things for very long. If we're trapped in a pattern, tough, we got to get out of it, because there's a book to write, or there's a workshop to lead. These people came here to see us, you know, and to get something, not just to see us, but to get something for themselves. And so we can't afford, we don't have the luxury of staying, we have to make something more important than being right or anything else. So there's a larger intention, which calls forth something different than if we were just arguing over lunch, or, you know, having a mundane conversation. And I think anyone can do that. Actually, you don't have to be writing a best-selling book with your father to create scaffolding, to create an intention, but it has to be something bigger than just something larger, something that inspires both of you, because we only act on that which really inspires us. Otherwise, why bother? So some larger intention, whether it's something for the family, whether it's a road trip you're going to do together, whether it's something that contributes to the world. I think that might be one key. And it definitely did that. And then also inside of that, it's not just like I had to learn through trial and error to set boundaries, which can be very hard for people. I had to set boundaries, because I can't work with you if I'm not going to set boundaries, Dad. Like, that's what like, I can't allow you to take out your frustration on me the way you might be used to. I also can't let myself get into big pissy arguments with you. We got to find another way to do it. It's just too tiring. I can't do my best work. And this is where my skill as a collaborator in the musical theater environment actually came into play. I was able to bring a skill set into this collaboration that I think I can honestly and with all humility say he didn't have, because he's used to being the guy. He's the guy. You know, he has co-written a book with Gordon Neufeld, but Hold On to Your Kids. But in that case, it was Gordon's ideas. He was mainly the writer. They were equals and peers, right? Here, I'm his son, who has a lot less professional experience in his field, but I've co-written musicals. I've written lyrics and someone else is writing the music, or I've written the songs and someone else is writing the what's called the book, which is the script, the story, the dialogue. That takes a lot of ego yoga and a lot of listening. And what you want to develop in the end is a joint voice. The songs should not feel separate from the scenes in a good musical. It flows out of it. It's one reality, one world you're creating. And I was not the best at this when I started out, when I was in grad school. And I had a big ego and I wanted the credit and I wanted to win. And I always thought I knew best. And just getting to work with really talented, kind, patient people who thought my voice was worth a little patience taught me from experience kind of what it takes in these negotiations between collaborators. So even just bringing one of my skill sets to him as like a gift to him and teaching him something. Because I was like, Dad, I'm here for you. Like, I want your message to get out into the world. Like, this might be your gift to the world, this book. This isn't really my gift to the world. My gift to the world is going to come in a more, a musical, or the next book we write, which will become much more from me. This is my gift to you, Dad. Because I want this book to succeed. Like, your fulfillment is going to be big for a lot of people, and it'll be fulfilling for me to see you finally get this book out. Meaning that I had something to bring to the table. I wasn't begging Daddy for validation. I was actually I was value added to this project, and I knew it from the start. And that boosted my sense of self and my sense of self-esteem. And when he didn't recognize that, when he treated me like an appendage in moments when he was anxious and insecure, or like an impediment, I got to say, okay, hold on, pause. Who are you talking to? And that felt really good to have those conversations where I knew I was standing on solid ground. I know who I am. I know who you are. And then the flip side of that is I had to get off my own bullshit when I would be reacting to him like he was a big bad wolf, when I was seeing him as the villain or as the antagonist to me, like he was trying to like reading him in bad faith, basically looking at him through the perception that you're trying to suppress me, you're trying to mistrust me, you're trying to subjugate me, whatever. Well, that's the perception of a 2-year-old. That's actually how it looked in my childhood. That was my living nightmare a lot of the time. He wasn't like that all the time, but it was inconsistent enough and predictable enough that that's the view I developed, which means I'm very weak, I'm very small, and all I have is my words. So when I found myself reacting like that, I had to get off it as quickly as I could and realize, okay, maybe that's not what's happening. Maybe my ego is getting in the way, and maybe he's just insecure. Maybe he's just a 76-year-old, 77-year-old man who really wants to say this thing to the world and is really terrified that it's not gonna land. And maybe there's something about this that's been eating away at him. And I was like, oh, I can relate to that because I've written musicals before. I'm a creator, I'm an artist. I know, and I have an artist temperament. He doesn't. He's got like a crusader's temperament or a healer's temperament. He's used to being much more sure of himself. I can tolerate more ambiguity because I dwell in those in-betweens. So then compassion for my father comes in laying down my sword and shield and like just being there for him, but also having boundaries. Like, at a certain point, Dad, you're going to need to see a therapist. His blood pressure was going up. Normally he says he has the blood pressure of a baby, but he was actually having health issues when we were writing this book. And at a certain point, I was like, Dad, I love you. I respect you. I'm your co-writer. I need you to be in good health. You need to take care of yourself. I can't take care of you past this point. So in all of these ways, what I'm saying is the structure of doing this work together, and it's been exactly the same in the Hello Again workshops, learning how to say no to him, not out of petulance, but out of commitment, out of kind of righteous indignation. Dad, we're better than this. I deserve better, you deserve better, the audience deserves better. It's a scaffolding for building muscles, that it's training wheels for building a kind of balance of a relationship that's has more integrity to it, and that's based on who we actually are now, which is two grown men. And as the book went along, I experienced my father seeing me as a man in a way that I'd never experienced before. He said to me once, I was really frustrated with him once. I was actually trying to help him with an op-ed he was writing, an article, but I was not credited at this point. I was just his editor, you know, I was in the background. And I was trying to suggest that he take the article in a certain direction. He was dismissing it very brusquely. I said, Dad, God damn it, when are you going to see me as an equal? And then he said this thing that was just like a gut punch to me. He said, Daniel, I can't make you my equal. And I was like, oof, I'm going to be forever Gabor's son. You know, but in the next moment he said, only, and I also can't make you not my equal. Only you can do that. And to a large extent, that was true. But what was also true is that he had to allow it. He had to allow it. And being humbled by the size and scope and ambition of this project, I think helped him relax his need to be in control, which comes from his anxiety, his neurosis, all of that. So both of us had this framework inside which to see the other and see ourselves in a different way, and to just let go of stuff that wasn't important, that wasn't going to serve the project.
Yeah. I love that.
What's sort of the word that's coming to mind is just mutual, you know, a mutual relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's much more so, which is not to say we don't have our explosions. We've had several in the past few weeks, and I think mostly they've been my fault, or at least I'm not blaming myself, but I'm the one who was the most aggravated, or I'm the one who was the most triggered, you know, which is not to say he didn't play a role, because his reactions to me being triggered bring me all the way back to when I was a child. And if I expressed emotion the wrong way, he would get very harsh and punitive and dark and disapproving. So when that happens, it's just a big clusterfuck. But at least now as an adult, I can be like, oh, I instigated that. Okay, now I know what to look out for, because I'd like to not be the instigator. If we're going to have that, I'd prefer he's the instigator, because I like having the moral high ground. Yeah. It's embarrassing when I'm the one who starts it, you know.
Yeah, I think that everyone going through some sort of family dynamic is going to take something out of that. For me, what jumped out was how we can, you know, you said putting down the shield, yet still having strong boundaries. And so many people get mixed up. They're like, well, if I'm putting down my shield, then people are going to step all over me. And that does not have to be the case. Those two things can coexist. Yeah. You can relax the shield, but also have healthy boundaries. And family is one of the hardest ones that people find to set them.
That's right. And the word boundaries is such a buzzword these days, and it's an important one. I'm glad people are setting boundaries, but it can turn into a new kind of identity force field. And I like to think of boundaries as temporary immigration conditions. It's like if Canada, say, is having an unemployment crisis, and there's all kinds of unemployed Canadians, well, then that means there's an infrastructure crisis inside our own country. We might temporarily tighten our immigration requirements until certain conditions are met, and then we can loosen the frontier. And then there's a bit more of a flow. So it's like, hey, I just need this. It's not a new, like, these are my rigid boundaries. Don't you cross them. It's like, in this moment, this is where the boundaries need to be. And the other side of it is the boundaries are for both of us. There's a mutuality to who benefits from the boundaries. Ultimately, you may not see it that way, but you not getting to infringe on my boundaries ultimately will be better for you too. And even if it isn't, I'm gonna insist on it. But that, again, that brings it back to there being something bigger at play than just this interaction. We're out to create something. We have an intention, and that intention will not be served by continuing to confuse the boundaries between us. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I said to my father, I don't know where you end and I begin. Now at that point, yeah, so that doesn't serve the kind of relationship that we both deserve to have. So me setting that boundary is not just, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. It's an invitation to something better for both of us.
it's essential to have boundaries, especially in these like dynamics with our parents. It's like, like they push our buttons because they installed them, in our childhood. And when we're relating to, especially our parents, it's like we go into a merged state. Like you said, you don't know where you begin or where your dad ends and you begin. And what boundaries do is they help us to individuate, because there are parts of our psyche where there were, arrests in our development, and we can call that trauma. And there are arrests in the individuation process. They're parts of us that never individuated. And so when we're, writing a book with our dad, these parts are going to come up. When we're at dinner with our mum or our dad, these parts are going to come up. And the tendency is for our reactive pattern to merge with their reactive pattern. And we lose ourselves at the moment. And so having boundaries individuates us from that reactive pattern.
And I can tell you that working with parents as well in these workshops, parents need to have their boundaries too, because they can get so consumed by guilt. And, adult children, we can get into modes where, one of the prototypes we talk about in the Hello Again workshop is the aggrieved child, which is definitely the one I default to the most. There's also the dutiful child, the withdrawn child. These are all coping mechanisms within the relationship. But if you're so consumed by guilt that every time your child starts upbraiding you or berating you, like as children, I find that there's a part of me that wants reparations. Make it up to me. You owe me. Make it better. Make that thing that happened not have happened. Redeem my history. Something they absolutely cannot do, and they'd be ripping us off if they tried, because that's not emancipation. That's not liberation. Liberation is what happened, and I am who I am, and I'm going to exercise some choice and agency. So parents who get drawn into that are also in the midst of boundary confusion, and they don't know how to say no to their kids. So it actually does go both ways. And that's the trick for me in these workshops, is I'm not a parent myself, but I have to remember that it's not just about freeing adult kids from their parents. It's freeing parents up to say, in some ways, my job is done. And now my job is something different. And what's my intention? It's very interesting.
Well, it's interesting because so many
yeah.
parents identify so strongly with the role of being a parent. And so it's like that caring nature, and I have to be there for them. Matt and I have done quite a bit of work with family members of people struggling with addiction, and that quite often is parents. And you're so right, being able to help with that guilt and shame, and understanding the kind of the compulsion to always rescue the child is kind of the same compulsion of the child trying to reach for a drug or alcohol. It's that compulsion to try and make the nervous system feel safe.
This is why they have Codependence Anonymous, right?
What's the example I gave in the addiction course? It was like the same compulsion that drove me to, leave the house at 2 a.m. to go score heroin and, pass out in the flat and then ring my mom at 4:30 a.m., because come and pick me up. Is the same compulsion that makes her come pick me up. So I'd get the heroin, stick it in my arm. Oh, my nervous system would regulate. I'd come back to homeostasis. My mom, where's Matt? Oh, he's going to die. Something terrible is going to happen. Same panic as me. Oh, I need heroin. She gets in the car, goes and picks me up. As soon as I get in the car, oh, he's safe. Her nervous system comes to homeostasis. That cycle of regulating the nervous system via external circumstance, via an external object, or making something happen, reaching for something, that is the cycle of addiction. And so parents are playing out addiction just as much as the child who's reaching for the drug. The drug has nothing to do with addiction.
That's so interesting. And also your nervous system is being regulated by, at last, I'm getting taken care of.
Yeah.
Those love chemicals can flow, except
exactly.
Ultimately, you're gonna need more and more. That's so interesting.
So what you say in the book, that addiction goes far beyond the spectrum of addicts. What most people think of it as addicts. I say everything humans do in our culture is addiction. We're regulating our nervous system. That's what we're attempting to do, because what's that right. quote? We say that, all of man's problems stem from his inability to sit in a room alone with no distractions without going crazy. And it's because our nervous system, it's because when we sit still, everything there is there and comes up. And so everything we do is an attempt to avoid and reach something outside of that to get some, some reprieve from the pain that we're in.
And we collude with each other in the ways that you're talking about. So that's an important recognition.
And
does that answer that? Does that answer that audience question?
100%. Yeah, in great depth. Thank you. And that ties into obviously capitalism as well, which feeds on people saying that, well, if you buy this product or have this experience, then you'll be liked by everyone and you'll be okay. Once again, it's that feeling.
Oh yeah, capitalism is very happy to have us all addicted. It manufactures the desires and then confuses them, induces us to think their needs, and then it exploits that. So
good for business, right?
It's perfect.
It's interesting because when something resolves, when it say trauma gets metabolized or a stress response completes itself, the feeling is, and it's over. It's the same feeling we get, when we use heroin, or when, when we pick up our son, or when something happens, whenever we play out our compulsions, that we go to the fridge and, there's chocolate. It's that same.
It's the difference between, it's the difference between pleasure and contentment, because as Don Draper said, we quote Don Draper from Mad Men in the book, what is happiness? Happiness is just a moment before you need more happiness. Well, that's the capitalism Madison Avenue advertising version of happiness. What that actually is just pleasure, is just relief, pain relief.
Which is followed by a come down.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is followed by a come down, which then necessitates another come up. Happiness is, I feel good. I'm content. I can move on from that hedonic treadmill of constantly needing more.
Yeah,
so true. Daniel, where can people get in touch with you and your work, Daniel? I mean, this has been an incredible chat, and I think the audience is going to get so much out of this. Is it Mind Architect? Is it the Hello Again workshops? Where the best place for people to search for you?
So there's separate things. So Mental Chiropractic is at walkwithdaniel.com.
Yeah.
And if people out there are interested in exploring that, I offer, you can set up a 15-minute call with me for free, and we just talk about, do you have a situation in your life that would be a fit for this? And I had to tell someone just the other day, like, yeah, probably not, because you're dealing with something pretty huge. You should probably find therapy. But a lot of the time, someone's able to identify a specific stuck point, and we go to work on that. So that's at walkwithdaniel.com. If anyone wants to check out some of my musical theater work, you can find quite a lot of it on YouTube. Also, danielmatte.com has sort of a list of my shows. I have a YouTube channel called Lyrics to Go, where I break down song lyrics and talk about the art and craft of lyric writing. I've done episodes on Joni Mitchell. I've done a 10-part series on each member of the Wu-Tang Clan's best verses. I've done Metallica. I've done Talking Heads. I've done Bjork. So I'm just a huge fan of lyrics. And one of my most popular videos, strangely, is me reacting to Juice WRLD, who I'd never heard of. He's, I'm old, but people seem to enjoy watching old people discover new things. So that's it. If you just search for Daniel Maté Lyrics to Go, that's on YouTube. Subscribe. And I've been putting out videos less frequently recently, just with all the busyness from the book and stuff, but I do continue to add content there. And the Hello Again workshop, we have a website. It's woefully out of date. We'll be updating it soon, because very soon we'll start working on that book. We're going to create a podcast. So look for information about that in the new year. The website is helloagainproject.com, but don't try to sign up for the email list right now, because it won't work. I need to go fix that when I have a moment. But the best way to keep tabs on most or all of this stuff is to follow me on social media, Twitter and Instagram, danielbmatte.com, B as in Brisbane, Mate. And you can also follow my father, which is Dr. Gabor Maté on Twitter, Gabor Maté MD on Instagram. And we're regularly posting updates about what we're up to. And that'll include the Hello Again workshops we have one coming up in upstate New York at the end of October. We'll be streaming the Friday night public talk, not the weekend workshop. And then we have another one in Vancouver at the end of November. And we usually put those things up on YouTube once they're done. And we have several videos on our joint channel and on my channel of our past Hello Again talk. So people can check that out too.
Brilliant. We'll put all the links to those down below this video. And I'm sure a lot of our community already have the book, but if you haven't already, pick up The Myth of Normal. Can you hold it up there, Daniel, just so people can see again? Brilliant book. As I said, I'm about halfway through. Matt's just finished it, and it's such an important message that is getting out to the world. So we just want to thank you so much for writing it with your dad. And this has been a wonderful chat today. I've really enjoyed this. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, I love like the natural sort of organic just conversation. It feels like all that. It feels like three mates just chatting about some very deep and serious topics.
Well, two mates and a mate.
Yeah. You've used that one before.
No, not exactly. Never with two Australians. I've been waiting for that my whole life. I should also say I'm the voice of the
brilliantly, by the way.
Thanks. I guess you guys mentioned at the beginning that I'm the voice of the audiobook, so you can if you like listening on long road trips or walks or whatever, or while you're doing the dishes.
I love the accents that you do. You do the accents really well.
Yes, I picked up on that too.
Oh,
yeah,
a couple of times.
Thanks. Yeah, I did a Scottish accent for Jimmy Reed, and I hope the Jordan Peterson wasn't too over the top. It was I wanted to do a subtle little JP, but we were kind of taking the piss out of his parenting approach. So
yeah.
But I hope I didn't offend any of his fans too much.
Valid points about that, definitely.
Yeah, what's interesting is there's so many people who are like, please, Jordan Peterson, talk to Gabor Maté on stage. Please, Gabor, talk to Jordan. You would think that the two of them they're so different, but actually they're both these kind of thin, intense, older Canadian men who are trying to explain a complicated world to people and offering people off-kilter ways of looking at things. They both have their own esoteric kind of compassion. Jordan Peterson breaks into tears a lot more than my father does, interestingly. They have very different philosophies on life, but I can see the similarities. It's really funny.
I think there's a lot more in common than not.
Yeah, you'd have to explain that to my dad. He's completely boggled by that, but everyone sees it. So they're, all the people can't be all wrong all the time. But yeah, it just speaks to people who are looking for answers. People who are looking for someone to explain the chaos of our world to them. And thankfully, there isn't just one person out there doing that people have a wide range of resources and sources. Because, the minute you only have one voice in your ear, you're down a dark road.
Got a problem. Yeah. But we just want to thank you so much. I want to honor you. And I really appreciate you jumping on and chatting with us. And this is an important message. I'm so glad that you're sharing it. And I look forward to continuing the friendship in the future, hopefully.
Likewise, guys. Thank you for staying up until almost midnight to talk to me your time.
So
that I could do this in the light of day.
43.
All right, guys. Take
Awesome.
care.
Thank you.
Awesome.